What's good, guys? We're back at it again. Back at it with the predictions for Tatsuro Taira versus Brandon Royval. We're going to break down the entire card. But first, let's talk about UFC 307. Alex Pereira had a great round 4 KO. I was asking everybody all week, yo, Weezy, you think this fight touches the third round? Would you be surprised if this touches the third round? You think the over 1.5 is going to hit? Yes, it hit. Over 1.5 hit. This fight touched the third round. And Alex Pereira hit by KO. One thing I want to say is going 7-5 for a 12-fight card is not the best, especially a pay-per-view. Considering Tim Means lost, Corey McGee's on that juicy steroid up. I should have chose McGee. Rodriguez was a terrible pick, you know the judges. And she clearly lost that fight too, getting taken down and bulldozed at the third round. Weak as fuck. Thompson got knocked the fuck out. I should have known that his chin was a little bit of a baby. Aldo, weak as fuck, getting held against the cage. That's his fault for getting held against the cage. I think you should act like the fence is electricity. After Mark Goddard separated them, he gets held against the fence again. Mario Batista got that win fair and square. One thing I want to say is we'll definitely do way better on this card coming up, and we'll definitely come back. It's comeback season. One thing I want to say is lock of the week hit. My 6 best bets, 4 out of the bets hit. The only 2 that didn't hit was Aldo and Pennington. And the bonuses hit. I had 2 bonuses. So, lock of the week hit. 4 best bets hit. The 2 bonuses hit. The over 1.5 and Alex Pereira by KO hit. One thing I want to say is KO by rounds 1, 2, or 3 was not the play. KO rounds 4 and 5 was amazing. So overall, it was an amazing card. One thing I want to say is I really want to go 10-2. I really want to go more positive, and I want to have a way better positive ratio. So, with that being said, 13-fight card ahead of us today. Tatsuro Taira versus Brandon Royval. We're going to go over the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event. So without further ado, let's go over it. Let's go over the entire card. Very stacked card. Brandon Royval, Tatsuro Taira, Iron Turtle, Brad Tavares, Grant Dawson, Rafa Garcia. You can say the Raquel Pennington and the Jose Aldo were robberies, but in my opinion, if you make the fight too close to consider, you lost that fight. So no shame in that. It happens to the best of us. But we will be back, especially with a 13-fight card. I didn't even go negative, to be honest. Lock of the week saved me. And Peloton saved me with that round 4 KO and the over 1.5. All right, here we go. Clayton Carpenter versus Lucas Rocha. Clayton has been competing since he was a teenager, coming off a dominant grappling performance, taking on Lucas, who's a solid striker, has great body work, good combinations over the top. No regard whatsoever for what comes back his way. Many times what comes back his way is a takedown for Lucas, and he ends up getting taken down, but he has great BJJ to settle with that, making his UFC debut after a successful Contender Series. Clayton has less experience, but is a nasty wrestler with grappling. Honestly, Clayton is coming off of an intense, great performance of grappling department, showcasing his grappling skills and showcasing that he's less experienced at only 7-0 inside the UFC, but he has way better grappling than Lucas Rocha. In my opinion, a guy like Lucas Rocha making his UFC debut is in for a rude awakening, making your UFC debut against a guy with the grappling skills of Clayton Carpenter. Clayton Carpenter is a 2-1 favorite. In my opinion, I think if you want to take him now, but if you don't, nothing wrong with skipping a fight. We saw last week at 307. There's nothing wrong with skipping a fight, honestly. If you were to skip some of the fights in between, like the Raquel Pennington and Pena fight, you would have missed a robbery of Juliana Pena. They gave her rounds 1, 2, and 3. I was like, oh my gosh, what are the judges doing today? But they don't get fired. They don't take no accountability for what they do, and they never have to speak about why they gave a certain fighter this round. So judges get to go to sleep happily and peacefully that night, and they never get to pay for what they do. In my opinion, Sal Diamantio should be fired. A lot of these judges make stupid decisions, and half of them are causing controversial split decisions. So one thing about UFC fight nights is we're not going to get those judges like Sal Diamantio who should be fired and should be taken and cut from the UFC or cut from UFC judging at all. I know judging is separate from the UFC, but he should never judge again. That's some things that happen to the best of us. I don't know how you can give Juliana Pena the first round. I know I'm going off into a tangent, but there's no way you could give Juliana Pena the first round. Unless you want to give her 1, 2, and 3, that's fine. But in my opinion, I think Rocky won rounds 1, 4, and 5. One thing that I want to say is that there should be no judges taken into consideration. This fight's most likely going to go the distance, and it's going to be a clear-cut decision. I like clear-cut, dominant performances. I like guys like this who are Clayton Carpenter, who I can trust, who are going to have this grappling department. And if he's not going to get that takedown, then we know he's going to be in for a long night. I like clear-cut specialists, guys who are good at one thing and one thing only, but that one thing supersedes everything that the other guy has. In my opinion, I think he's levels above a guy like Lucas Rocha. And Lucas Rocha has 17-1 and 0 fights. He has more experience, but he's the plus 145 underdog. Rightfully so. Give me Clayton Carpenter to win this fight by grappling hard. 29-28 after losing the first round. Maybe he has trouble with the striking in the early bits. But I like Clayton Carpenter. I think he's a great wrestler and comes from a good gym as well. So he should be able to get that job done on Saturday. Dan Argueta versus Cody Haddon. Ooh, Dan Argueta has had some bad luck lately. Bad luck. No contest. Premature stoppage against Ronnie Lawrence. No contest against Miles John. His most recent win is to Nick Argueta, and then he lost to Gene Masimoto by submission. That's fine. Cody Haddon, on the other side, his one loss in Pro MMA is to who? Steven Erceg, which is insane considering that Steve Erceg fought for the title. He just recently got knocked out by Kai Kara-France, but that's fine. It happens to the best of us. 31 years old to 26 years old, plus 155 for Dan Argueta. He's a wrestler, hard wrestler, versus Cody Haddon, who's a very good striker, who is a prospect coming from Australia. In my opinion, if your only loss in Pro MMA is to Steve Erceg, it looks really good on your resume. Because we know a guy like Steve Erceg gives a lot of guys trouble and gives a lot of guys very, very tough issues. Minus 185, considering he was coming from the Dana White Contender Series, had a successful submission choke, rear naked over Billy Brand. He should have a successful UFC debut. The only thing is, a guy like Dan Argueta is going to wrestle hard. And you know he's probably going to be able to take down a guy like Cody Haddon. Steve Erceg fight was very, very good. It was fun to watch as well. He's younger. We can say Dan Argueta has a lot more experience, and this is a real tough veteran test. His loss to Damon Jackson is a little bit questionable because why are you losing to a guy like Damon Jackson? But that's fine. 68-inch reach to 69. Dan Argueta is a little short for the bantamweight division, in my opinion. But we'll see how they look on the face-offs on Friday. I think Cody Haddon should be able to be the taller fighter, rangier fighter, should have more success. His gym, Combat Academy, is very good. And he should be able to defend a lot of takedowns from Dan Argueta. The only thing is his UFC debut. We know guys win at a 30% clip on the UFC debut, and this might not be a good UFC debut. Majority Tapologies on Haddon by submission. If you want Argueta, go Argueta by decision. Argueta has had a lot of bad luck lately in the UFC, though. So I'm going to go Haddon, and I'm going to go Haddon by unanimous decision. I'm going to go Cody Haddon. I think he's going to be too clean. I think he should be able to defend the takedowns. And if he wants to, he can even reverse and sweep a guy like Dan Argueta and get a submission. I don't think he will. I know Dan Argueta is very good. He got finished by Gene Masimoto by submission. So maybe you could say a submission is open for Cody. But I'm going to just take Cody moneyline. Cody Haddon for the win. Let's go. Prelim. Chris Barnett versus Junior Tafa. Some bookies had this where it was plus 400 for Junior Tafa. And I was like, what? What bookie is that? So some people have a ticket out there where it's plus 400 on Junior Tafa and they're waiting for it to cash. In my opinion, Junior Tafa is a minus 380 right now. He opened up at a minus 250 around there. Plus 300 for Chris Barnett. Chris Barnett is coming off of a 2-year layoff against Jay Collier. Ground and pound KO. That was fine. Perfect. Prior to that, he lost to Martin Boudet by decision unanimous. And then Gina Villanti by KO wheel kick. We know that was an amazing highlight reel KO where he had that spinning wheel kick and he got him real good. A lot of people were put on the map when they found out about Chris Barnett. And they were very excited because he's a fat guy who is athletic. He's a guy who's overweight, but he has these spin kicks. He has these amazing kicks coming from the jump. And it shows that he's a problem to be dealt with in speed, velocity, and everything. He should be the faster fighter. He's going to be fighting a kickboxer in Junior Tafa, who's a great heavyweight striker. The only thing is his takedown defense is terrible. Has a takedown defense of a baby calf. Marcos Rodrigo de Lima was able to leg kick TKO him and then ground and pound finish him. His record is trash too, 5-3-0 in the UFC. You only get away with that at heavyweight. Walter Walker, he lost by submission heel hook. Who loses to Walter Walker, bro? Who loses? No, I'm just kidding. That's fine, though. Walter Walker's good. I had a feeling Walter Walker was going to beat him, to be honest. Walter Walker had a weird start coming into the UFC, so it was almost a pick 'em when he was fighting Junior Tafa. So if you had Walter Walker that time, 1 month and 2 weeks ago, I believe I picked him, but it wasn't a confident pick. You cashed out. In my opinion, a guy like Junior Tafa should be able to deal with a guy like Chris Barnett. The only thing is, with these types of fights at heavyweight, you never really know what to expect. 38 years old, Tampa, Florida. 28 years old, 10-year age gap, 266. 244. Chris Barnett's going to be the heavier fighter by a lot. 5'9" to 6'3", 75-inch reach to 72. Junior Tafa should be able to get a finish in here. If he's not able to finish a guy like Chris Barnett inside the distance, then we should be able to cut him from the UFC. I know Junior Tafa is questionable, and he stepped on short notice for his brother. And him and his brother have almost a similar fight styles. But if I'm going to go somebody, guys, I'm going to go Junior Tafa to win this fight by KO inside the distance. Preferably second or third round. If he's not able to finish a guy like Chris Barnett, that's fine. And I would like to see Chris Barnett win. Chris Barnett's one of my favorite fighters, and he's more exciting. And I like it when he does his little dance. When he does a little dancey dance. That's actually pretty funny. So give me Junior Tafa to win this fight. I know majority Tapology is going, somebody's going to get knocked out. If you're going Chris Barnett, go Chris Barnett by KO. If you're going Junior Tafa, go Junior Tafa by KO. In my opinion, Junior Tafa is not that guy that you want to put all your money on. And he's not a guy that you want to trust everything in your life savings on. So in my opinion, the best bet, skip this fight. If you want to play something, play fight ends by KO. It's probably juice to the grills. Look for an over 1.5. You know, sometimes when two fat boys fight, it's a boring ass fight, or sometimes it's fun. No matter what, may the best man win. I don't want to see no weird stuff. I don't want to see no weird judging, and I don't want to see no like early stoppage. I want to see a definitive answer here, and we need to know where both of these guys are at in their UFC career. Give me Junior Tafa to win this fight, and give me him to win by KO. It's going to be fun. That's going to be fun, man. Here we go. We got Niko Price versus Themba Gorimbo. Niko Price is coming off of that beautiful win over Alex Morono. Alex Morono is the definition of washed, in my opinion. When you look up washed, a guy like Alex Morono should come up in the Google search, because Alex Morono should have been able to win that. If Alex Morono was in his prime, I know that was a rematch as well, so he lost both of them. But if Alex Morono was in his prime, I think he would have had a little bit more competitive fight. I don't know what you're doing losing to a guy like Niko Price, but Niko Price is very good, has a very fun fight style, and he deserved that win because he won rightfully slow, clear cut, dominant. Robbie Lawler, KO, he lost. Lost to Phil Rowe by KO, so a lot of people had him as the underdog in this fight. So if you had Niko Price for this fight, you know that was a great play. Themba Gorimbo is the guy who Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, I believe, gave a house to. Themba Gorimbo is a little bit of a slower striker. When you look at Themba Gorimbo fight, he's a guy who's a little bit boring on some people's eyes, because he's a counter striker waiting for the right punches. Doesn't have the most exciting style. But Themba Gorimbo should be able to win this fight by decision. He's a minus 280 favorite, comes from Zimbabwe, 33 years old, younger fighter, faster fighter, should be cleaner on the counter. 170 to 170, 6'0 to 6'1, 76-inch reach to 77. In my opinion, Themba Gorimbo should just absolutely wash through a guy like Niko Price. I don't know what Niko Price is still doing in the UFC. He's a dog. He has that good finishing ability. He has good finishing. You know, he has a very good finish off the ground, very famous on his highlight reel. But in my opinion, he's closer to the end of his career than the beginning. And a guy like Themba Gorimbo should be able to dance all around him, should be too quick, should be dancing around the cage, use the cage as electricity, and not touch the cage at all. Should be able to dance all over him, and he should be able to get a finish over a guy like Niko Price. The only thing is, don't be surprised if Themba Gorimbo wins by decision. We know he's won against decision his most recent fight, and Pete Rodriguez, he got a KO over him, right? That was clean. And then Takashi Sato, he won by decision. And then prior to that, he won by decision in Julia Rodriguez in Fury. He lost his UFC debut to AJ Fletcher by submission. We know AJ Fletcher beat Zigamontes, which is good. AJ Fletcher is not a bad loss. So Themba Gorimbo needed that loss, and considering that was 1 year and 7 months ago, he's a way better fighter since then. And he's one of my most anticipated fighters on the entire card. I keep a lookout, guys, because this guy might be on 6 best bets. I just want to see if he's a minus 400. I don't want him to be a minus 400, because we don't want minus 400s on the card on the 6 best bets. We want some guys who are juicy, and we want a play like Themba Gorimbo by decision, or Themba Gorimbo by KO or decision is one of the best props, in my opinion. Number 53, though, in the world versus number 35. So Themba Gorimbo should be able to win this fight by unanimous decision, dancing around the cage. And he's a cleaner striker, so if Niko Price is just walking him down, trying to pressure him, and he just walks into a straight, clean right, like he got his a KO overhand right and ground and pound, he could definitely catch Niko with that. But I think Niko has too much of a chin. He's too strong. And I know it's kind of weird for me to say he has too much of a chin, but considering he got knocked out by Phil Rowe and Robbie Lawler, but earlier in his career he had a chin. And I think in this fight, I don't think Themba Gorimbo has that much power in his hands. Maybe I'm wrong. Give me Themba Gorimbo to win this fight by unanimous decision, 29-28, after losing the second round. Jonathan Pearce versus Pat Sabatini. Pat Sabatini's second UFC fight, he gets dropped bad. And Pat immediately, he gets dropped bad. And then he gets put on the floor. And then the guy's trying to go for ground and pound. And then Pat Sabatini immediately gets a heel hook and wins the fight. Pearce is non-stop grappling pressure. 14-6-0 for Pearce. Pat Sabatini is the guy who just lost to Diego Lopez by KO 10 months ago. I feel bad for Pat Sabatini because we didn't know what type of guy we were getting with Diego Lopez. So if you step up and fight a guy like Diego Lopez, who is finishing almost every guy in the first round, has crazy power, finishes guys like Sadiq Youssef, just beat Brian Ortega, dropped him in the first round, crazy power. No shame in losing to a guy like Diego Lopez, considering Diego Lopez would probably whoop Jonathan Pearce's ass too. I don't know if he'll knock him out in the first round, but he also lost to Damon Jackson by KO, so we know that maybe that chin is cracking a little bit. Plus 110 for Pat Sabatini, minus 135 for Jonathan Pearce, JSP, whatever you want to call him. 32 years old versus 33, featherweight division, 6'0 to 5'8, 71-inch reach to 70. When I look at this fight, I want to mention how Jonathan Pearce's non-stop pressure can sometimes be the best of him or sometimes be the worst of him. He lost against David Onama, who David Onama is very good. He had that amazing fight against Nate Landwehr, and he showed a great performance. David Onama is very good. He has that power. So considering that David Onama didn't finish a guy like Jonathan Pearce is a win in my books. And he also lost to Joe Anderson Brito by submission ninja choke. We know Brito just lost to William Gomis at UFC Paris. You want to say that was a robbery? We got a bunch of robberies. I'm just kidding. I think William Gomis fair and square won that fight. Brito was too sloppy, too explosive, too much chasing submissions, and looked like a fool. He looked like a fool in that fight and fought like a dumbass. In my opinion, I think a guy like JSP should have no shame losing to a guy like Joe Anderson Brito. He's very powerful, starts off fast, and a guy like Joe Anderson Brito, if he wraps you up most of the time, it's lights out. 71-inch reach, 1-inch reach advantage for JSP. Pat Sabatini, 70-inch reach. Majority Tapology is going that this fight goes the distance. If you want to go JSP, you can go knockout, because considering that Pat Sabatini has been knocked out before, but I like Jonathan Pearce by submission as well. One thing I'm going to say is Jonathan Pearce has relentless grappling, and I don't think he's going to stop shooting on a guy like Pat Sabatini. I think Jonathan Pearce should be able to win this fight. Not only should he be able to win this fight, but he should be able to have a successful, clear-cut, unanimous decision. It should be a 29-28 unanimous decision, if not 30-27. He should be able to completely clear a guy like... completely run through a guy like Pat Sabatini. Just completely run through him. What clear-cut decision. 29-28, 30-27, 29-28. CJ Vergara versus Temirov. Temirov is a guy with power, making his UFC debut, comes from Ryzen. His last fight was 1 year ago. CJ Vergara has lost to Tatsuro Taira, and he lost by submission armbar, and then his most recent loss is to Asu Almabayev, who we know Asu Almabayev is a prospect in the flyweight division. CJ Vergara almost finished a couple fights ago, ran around the cage to regain his composure, and came back and won. So we know a guy like CJ Vergara, sometimes he's on the edge of getting finished, and he runs around the cage, gets his composure back, and he can come back and win the fight. So it shows that he's very good in that recovery aspect. Honestly, he's good at regaining his composure. Tairov seems different, though. Pushing through adversity. If Tairov connects, he will close the show. We know the power is on Tairov's side. Not only Temirov, you can call him Temirov, the power's on his side. Not only is the power on his side, but the agility, the age, the speed should be on his side. Uzbekistan is a great place to come from if you're an MMA fighter, especially combat sports. 127 was his last weigh-in. 33 years old to 27. Plus 210 for a moderate underdog, CJ Vera. You know this guy's going to be a heavy favorite. Minus 300 by the time. I think he should be able to finish this fight inside the distance. If he connects on a guy like CJ Vergara, he should be able to knock his ass out and put the lights out for good. Majority Tapology is going Temirov by KO. And I think I'm going to agree with Tapology. I'm going to go Temirov by KO. We know CJ Vergara is very good, though. Don't be surprised if he gets hit with a good punch. You know, he's playing that game where he's walking around the cage and then he regains his composure and he comes back with a second win and is able to have a very, very good performance. A guy like CJ Vergara needs this win, in my opinion, more than a guy like Temirov. Temirov should be able to have a successful debut, but I think if CJ Vergara keeps on losing in the flyweight division, he might get cut from the UFC. I know he's losing to the best prospects, Tatsuro Taira and Asu Almabayev, but be careful because CJ Vergara looks like he's on a little bit of a skid. That being said, though, his last fight against Vinicius Salvador was great, and Daniel Lacerda, ground and pound KO, amazing. We know that both of these guys have power in their hands, but the finishing aspect, the finishing side, is on Ramazonbek Temirov. In my opinion, he should be able to win this fight. Not only should he be able to win this fight, but he should be able to cut a clear-cut decision and win over a guy like CJ Vergara. Honestly, with all that being said, give me Temirov by KO, brutal KO. Just knocking him out clean. Just clean knockout. Just a clean round 2 KO. Chidi and Njokuani versus Jared Gooden. One thing I want to mention is that this fight has 13 fights on it. This card has 13 fights on it. It's a stacked card. Chidi. Okay. So, this is what I wrote. Chidi and Njokuani versus Jared Gooden. You don't know what to expect with these guys. Both of these guys, Night Train versus Bang Bang. Bang Bang, Chidi Bang Bang, Chidi Bang Bang, Chidi Bang Bang. Hey, minus 185 for Chidi Bang Bang. Njokuani, plus 150 for Jared Gooden. 35 years old to 30, 170 to 171, 6'3 to 6'0, 80-inch reach to 77. In my opinion, when you look at this fight, I wouldn't be surprised if this fight goes the distance. But one thing we have to mention is Chidi against his most recent Reese McKee. Yes, Reese McKee, he looked amazing. He had great leg kicks, great boxing. And he looked amazing with his leg kicks. His leg kicks was one of the best aspects about him, and I hope he brings it into this fight. Gooden has great takedowns. He was cut from the UFC in 2021 after going 1-3, then 4-1 in the regional scene. And then he did get back into the UFC, and now he's 1-1. Coming off the Wellington tournament, where the power and athleticism were on full display, Chidi needs more volume. A slow start could be an issue. So, we know since his UFC debut, again, not his first UFC debut, his time coming back to the UFC after going 4-1 in the regional scene, he lost to Carlston Harris, right? 1 year and 6 months ago, but now he's 1-1 in the UFC, considering he beat Wellington Turman, had great takedowns, and he also had a good rear naked choke over a guy like Wellington Turman. One thing I want to mention is he did get knocked out by Impa Kasagan by KO. We know he's now in the PFL. Impa, he had that vicious highlight reel where he got knocked out by Joaquin Buckley, I believe. And now we saw Buckley knock out Wonderboy. That was a crazy knockout, in my opinion. That was kind of sad. And we know a guy like Buckley is going to be a problem for welterweight division. Minus 185 for a guy like Chidi and Njokuani. In my opinion, he's going to be a bigger favorite by the time this fight starts. Jared Gooden needs to get the wrestling. He needs to get this takedown down, and he needs to make this more of a problem. He needs to start off faster. He starts off too slow sometimes. Most of the time he starts off too slow. His leg kicks need to be there, and he needs to show his power. He needs to hit clean on the chin on a guy like Jared Gooden. Put the Night Train good night. Put him to sleep. In my opinion, I don't think he's going to get a knockout, though. If Chidi and Njokuani is going to win, he's going to win a lackluster decision. It's going to be 29-28, 30-27, 29-28 after a controversial first round of Jared Gooden trying to get takedowns and then getting stuffed. In my opinion, I don't like where this fight is at, and I don't like touching this fight. Minus 1-800 type of gambler type of fight. Chidi Bang Bang should be able to get a good win, and he should be able to knock out a guy like Jared Gooden. But if he's not, it's because he gets taken down and he gets controlled. If you like Jared Gooden as an underdog, he's a very good dog considering that you know where he's going to come into play. You know he's going to come in, he's going to try to go, and he's going to go straight to work on the takedowns. And if he can't take the takedowns, he's going to try to strike with you until he can try to mix it up into a takedown. Chidi and Njokuani has an 80-inch reach. He should be able to get this job done. 29-28 unanimous decision. Let's go Chidi Bang Bang. Chidi Bang Bang, Chidi Bang Bang. Josh Fremd versus Abdul Razak Alhassan. When I look at this fight, man, this fight just screams. It just screams garbage. Just screams that these guys are both trash. What I wrote in my notes was right here. Okay. I wrote that Josh Fremd is a guy who's crazy. He's a guy who comes in with almost everything. He's gotten KO'd by Roman Kopylov by liver punch. And he's got Andrew Petrosky. He lost by decision unanimous. Who's losing to Andrew Petrosky in 2024? In the big 2024? You got a lot of issues if you're losing to Andrew Petrosky. Cody Bumditch. He had a no contest. Accidental elbows in the back of the head. You know him. Cody Bumditch. My back of the head. Please call it no contest. Please. We know Ihor Tierra. He was trying to do that yesterday. My eye. Please, Rev, call it off, please. You know, I hate guys like that. You know, guys like that have a lot of feminine ties to them. One thing I want to say is a guy like Abdul Razak Alhassan definitely does not have a quitter mentality in him, and you will never see a guy like Abdul Razak Alhassan call for a no contest or beg for a way out or beg for an easy way out. You could take this guy's leg off, and he won't ask for an easy way out. He won't ever ask the ref to take him out of the fight. In my opinion, he's a minus 150, and that's perfect. Considering this guy got his ass beat by Andre Prochazky, one thing you want to say is 39 years old. We know Joe Pyfer was able to beat him by submission after he wobbled him. It was a club and sub. We can see that if you have a lot of speed, if you're quicker than a guy like Abdul, you can get the best of him. Abdul is a powerhouse. He lost to Joaquin Buckley by split decision. How is that aging now? That's aging fine. And then he beat Dichorio by KO, head kick, who was crazy head kick KO. And I think Dichorio is the guy who knocked out Joaquin Buckley, if I'm correct. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. One thing I want to say is Josh Fremd is plus 125, 30 years old, 186, middleweight division. It's crazy because 76-inch reach, he's going to have a long-inch reach advantage. He can, if he wants to play his game, he could jab, close the distance, jab, use his range. But I'm going to go Abdul Razak Alhassan to win this fight, and I think he should be able to finish a guy like Josh Fremd. If he's not able to finish a guy like Josh Fremd, it's because of age factor and he's getting older. 39 years old, 40 years old in middleweight. I don't know how long you can get away with that. With that being said, give me Razak Alhassan by KO inside the distance, preferably first or second round. It's going to be a great fight, but a guy like Josh Fremd shouldn't even be in the UFC. Daniel Rodriguez versus Alex Morono. I think Alex Morono shouldn't even be in the UFC too. I'm not going to lie. Daniel Rodriguez, very good controversial split decision. Decision to Kelvin Gastelum. Lost that clear cut. That's fine 3 months ago. Then he lost to Ian Machado Gary 1 year ago. So he's more active now than he was 2 years ago, 1 year ago. Neil Magny, he lost a submission by Darce choke. Who loses to Neil Magny besides Mike Malott? I don't know. In my opinion, if you lose to Neil Magny in the big 2024, that's a red flag immediately. So I like to put red flags into a bunch of fights and call whether this is a bad loss or a good loss for them. In my opinion, a guy like Neil Magny is a terrible loss. If you're losing to a guy like Neil Magny, I don't know what you're doing. You got to reevaluate yourself and get a new regimen plan in the welterweight division like Joaquin Buckley. Alex Morono recently lost to Joaquin Buckley as well by decision. And then he beat Court McGee, who we know Court McGee's on that secret sauce. So if you're beating a guy like Court McGee, that's pretty impressive. The only thing is I did not like how he looked against Niko Price. Terrible. He looked terrible against Niko Price. Looked like he was scared to fight. And against Santiago Ponzinibbio, after he got hit, he made this weird expression with his face, and he just got put to sleep. So it shows that if you hit him hard enough, he's gonna look for the easy way out. He beat Tim Means, these Tim Means and Court McGee are his sons, or Alex Morono's sons. He beat him by submission, which is kind of impressive that he submitted Tim Means and then beat Court McGee by decision. That's funny. 17-5-0 for Daniel Rodriguez. If you like Daniel Rodriguez, like I do, you have to take age into consideration. 37 years old in the welterweight division. A lot of these guys are over 35. And can we continue to trust these guys over the age of 35 in the welterweight division? I'm going to say yes. Just because he had a competitive fight with Kelvin Gastelum. And I think Kelvin Gastelum completely runs through a guy like Alex Morono. Alex Morono, on the other hand, looked terrible against Niko Price. And if there's a guy who's over the hill or looking over the hill, let's say we take age out of this factor. We erase both of their ages. Both of these guys are the same age. We have a magic wand. Who looks more washed? It's Alex Morono. Alex Morono looks way more washed. He looked terrible against Niko Price. And just by that alone, I think if this was maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, even 2 years ago, a guy like Alex Morono should be able to win this fight. And he would be the favorite. If this was 2 fights ago, after his fight against Joaquin Buckley, he would have been the favorite. Minus 205 for a guy like Daniel Rodriguez, who's coming off a 3-loss skid. Terrible. This is a landmine. This is what you call a landmine. Something that you walk over, and it's a bomb, and then you step on it, and it's like, oh, nah. That's what a landmine is. 74-inch reach. He should be able to win this fight. He comes from 10th planet to jiu-jitsu. The only thing is, I don't like how he got taken down by Kelvin Gastelum. You could argue that he won that last fight against Kelvin Gastelum. I don't think so. Majority Tapology has Rodriguez to win. I'm going to go Rodriguez to win by unanimous decision. And I wouldn't be surprised if he puts a guy like Alex Morono out. He should be able to, but we know that he loves to win a split decision or a decision. He won against Jing Li Lang. In my opinion, I thought he lost that fight. I thought he clear-cut lost that fight. But they gave him the split decision. I don't know why they gave it to him, but that's fine. I got to rewatch that fight. Kevin Lee, he beat. That's fine. Clear-cut decision. But Kevin Lee was over the hill. So you can argue that Morono as a dog is a perfect dog, especially the great white. Why would I be overlooking guy like Morono, considering he's cashed in as a dog before and more times than Daniel Rodriguez? I'm going to go D-Rod, though, and I'm going to go to win this fight by unanimous decision. I think he should have a clear-cut chance at victory, especially at this being at the feet. If Morono tries to go for takedowns, I think Daniel Rodriguez has good takedown defense and he should be able to defend a couple of takedowns. I'm going to go Daniel Rodriguez to win this fight by unanimous decision, 29-28. Main card. There's a lot of decisions on this card. Cory McKenna versus Juliana Palastri. When I look at this fight, this is what I wrote for my notes. Cory versus Julia. Cory got the takedown on Jacqueline Amorim, but got subbed right away. Julia has power, but does not chase. She gets taken down pretty easily when she's on the ground. She has great BJJ, but she ended a 4-fight win streak with a decision loss to Josephine Knudsen, where the striking range was way too much for her, but her wrestling looked amazing. This is a landmine fight, and plus 3.5 for Cory McKenna is perfect. In my opinion, when we look at this fight, she was on a good fight win streak, considering that she was fighting in LFA, fighting in Ronman organization as well. And she was getting finishes inside the LFA as well. She got a KO over Bianca. She got a submission arm triangle choke. And then she got in contender series, she had a Patricia Alujas successful. Then she fought Josephine Knudsen. Got completely outworked with the range, with the distance, with the boxing. The only thing is her grappling looked amazing that fight. With that being said, her most recent loss for Cory McKenna's side is Jacqueline Amorim. 6 months ago, 2 weeks ago, I had that this fight goes the distance, and I had the over 1.5 for this fight. And that was when I was first starting, trying to play props. And she subbed her right away. I should have known that this was levels. There was a level in discrepancy in the fight IQ and in the jiu-jitsu IQ, because Cory McKenna went for a takedown, and she said, I'm going to just stay in the guard of Jacqueline Amorim. She got wrapped up into an armbar. We know who else got into an armbar with Jacqueline Amorim? Vanessa Demopoulos, who was complaining that her Jacqueline Amorim's hand was inside the glove. And it was. So we know Amorim's a little bit of a cheater, but what can you expect? May the best man win, especially if you're Brazilian. Juliana Palastri is that girl. She's 26 years old versus 25 on Cory McKenna. Strawweight division. I love the strawweight division now. To be honest, it's way better than the bantamweight division after what happened at 307. 5'3 to 5'2, 58-inch reach to 63. Minus 150 for Julia Palastri. She should be able to grapple a girl like Cory McKenna. Cory McKenna doesn't have the great BJJ, but if she does get a win, she has a very good submission Von Flue choke. She's gotten it, but that was 2 years ago. One thing I want to mention is Julia Palastri should be careful. The Psycho has to be careful if she gets swept and she gives up her back to a girl like Cory McKenna, or if she gives up a transition where Cory McKenna can get a submission. I think the finishing upside is on Cory McKenna, although she does have finishes outside the UFC, and in her Dana White Contender Series, she got a finish. So don't be surprised if this fight doesn't go the distance. 5'3 to 5'2, 58-inch reach is a small reach for strawweight, so 63-inch reach is going to be a very notable reach advantage. Maybe keep her away at the distance, considering that she had a lot of trouble in her striking department in her last fight. Give me Julia Palastri, to win this fight by unanimous decision or by submission. Majority Tapology has that this fight goes the distance, and 10% of Tapology has submission upside. I don't think anybody gets knocked out this fight. I'm going to go Julia Palastri to win this fight by unanimous decision, if not submission, in the third round after Cory McKenna gets tired, or she gets the top, or she gets on top of Julia. Gonna be a good fight though. I'm actually looking forward to this fight, and I might make a play right now. I think right now, right after this, I might make a play on Julia Palastri. Grant Dawson versus Rafa Garcia, the gifted Rafa Garcia. Plus 300 for the Mexican. Rightfully so. 30 years old against Grant Dawson, KGJD. Honestly, he beat Joe Selecki by a boring decision. I forgot that fight happened. Oh, that was a boring fight, Grant Dawson. You gonna put me to sleep just like you went to sleep with Bobby Green. Bobby Green put that motherfucker to sleep with a jab. Who goes to sleep with a jab, bro? Who goes to sleep with a jab? I think Bobby Green could hit a jab on me, and I won't go to sleep. The way Grant Dawson went to sleep right away, dude, that guy has the chin of Luke Rockhold. Luke Rockhold's wife gives him a kiss goodnight, and he falls right to sleep. In my opinion, I'm joking. I think a guy like Grant Dawson's good. And let's say we sketched, that was a smudge. That was a smudge in the tracks. 21-2-1. A smudge in the tracks. Bobby Green, maybe if we run that fight 10 times, Grant Dawson takes him down and he gets him good. You never know with a guy like Grant Dawson, especially in the fight game, a guy like Bobby Green who's fast, who's coming off of a win off of Drew Dober, I believe. Oh, no. He lost to Drew Dober. He lost to Drew Dober by KO. So never mind with that. But Bobby Green, prior to that, let me just make sure where Bobby Green was at the time. Because I believe Bobby Green had a very good win prior to the Grant Dawson. Yeah, he beat Tony Ferguson by arm triangle. And now he's a little bit on a skid. One thing I want to mention, though, is Grant Dawson should have no shame in losing to Bobby Green. No shame at all. Because Bobby Green could easily dance over a guy like Rafa Garcia. 70-inch reach for Rafa Garcia. 72-inch reach for Grant Dawson. 155, lightweight division. Lightweight division is stacked. You can flip a card 10 times out of 10, and the fight won't ever show up the same. Grant Dawson versus Rafa Garcia. Grant Dawson is boring as fuck. Rafa Garcia beat Clay Guida, and Grant Dawson was knocked out by a jab by a 40-year-old. If this is a boring fight, If this is a boring fight for Grant Dawson, that means Grant Dawson is going to win. 9 times out of 10, if the fight's boring, it's Grant Dawson just laying down on you and having no finishing ability whatsoever, not trying to get the submission whatsoever, and just trying to stall. Like a guy like Mario Batista. Guys like Mario Batista, guys like Grant Dawson, I just get so excited seeing them knocked out clean, stiff, out cold on the canvas. For some reason, I just love to see a guy like Grant Dawson knocked out. I wish Mario Batista just gets knocked out clean like Bryce Mitchell and Josh Emmett. And I can't wait for Mario Batista to lose. With that being said, though, Grant Dawson should be able to win this fight 30-27. Rafa Garcia has very good boxing. He's the guy who beat Clay Guida by decision unanimous, which was very good because Clay Guida showed that he had heart. And he showed that he was here for this fight, and he was here to fight. He's not a guy like Clay Guida. You know, a lot of people like to say Clay Guida just comes to fight, just to collect checks. But Clay Guida comes to fight. Mashati Heiser was a great win. Great win. And then he lost to Drakkar Klose, who we know Drakkar Klose has put in a couple of wins together for himself. He beat guys with submission where Nick choke, Jesse Ronson, and then he also beat Nate Levy. In my opinion, I think this fight goes the distance, 10 times out of 10. And give me Grant Dawson to come with the pressure, come with the wrestling, overwhelm a guy like Rafa Garcia, and maybe get a submission. I know more than likely he's not going to get the submission. Give me Grant Dawson to win this fight by 30-27 unanimous decision. Brad Tavares versus Jung Young Park. This is what I wrote for my notes. Brad versus Iron Turtle. Iron Turtle averages about 2 takedowns per fight. Coming off a sloppy fight against Andre Muniz, got taken down 11 times. 11 times by Andre Muniz. He was a big favorite against Andre Muniz. So if you had Andre Muniz, you cashed out big that day. Bruno Silva and Gregory Rodriguez both KO'd. Brad Tavares, bad. His chin is not what it used to be. And he's slowing down. Jung Young Park is not a KO guy. He's nowhere near the pinnacle of Bruno Silva or Gregory Rodriguez. He's going to need to wrestle hard. And I don't think he has the punch power to scare Brad. And he definitely doesn't have nasty takedowns to worry. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Tavares wins this fight. If there's any winnable fight for Tavares, it's a guy like Iron Turtle. Iron Turtle's a minus 170, but we know guys like Iron Turtle are so annoying to just watch fight. Because he's getting taken down 11 times by Andre Muniz. And then he's getting takedowns and looking boring, like against like guys like Albert Duraev, and that's fine. He got a submission choke, got a submission against Dennis Tululin, submission against Joseph Holmes, and then Eric Anders decision split. That was boring. One thing I want to say is a guy like Brad Tavares, I know he's over the hill, but he definitely has a chance to win this fight. In number 32 in the world middleweight division versus number 24. Very good fight. Plus 145 as a dog for Brad Tavares. One of the best dogs on the entire card. 36 years old to 33. Age factor is going to be on the upside for Jung Young Park, but Does Brad Tavares look faster? Does he have good leg kicks? Is he better in the striking department? I would say yes. I think if Jung Young Park doesn't take this fight to the ground, he's going to look like a fish out of water. He looked like a fish out of water when he got taken down 11 times by Andre Muniz and got controlled for 15 hard minutes and lost by split decision. I don't know what judge gave him that fight, but that's fine. I had it 1-1 going into the third round, but he clear-cut lost that fight. 74-inch reach for Brad Tavares. He's going to be the rangier fighter. Should be able to work his kicks, jab him, work his kicks. We know Brad Tavares has lost to guys like Dricus du Plessis, and he beat guys like Chris Weidman, decision, who we know Chris Weidman should have been able to win that fight, but Brad Tavares showed that he still got it, and showed that he was levels above a guy like Chris Weidman, who Chris Weidman just beat Bruno Silva. So what is this, rock, paper, scissors, shoot? Brad Tavares is the rock, Chris Weidman's the paper, and Bruno Silva's the scissors. Like, all these guys can't just beat one guy, they lose to the other guy, like rock, paper, scissors. In my opinion, I'm going to go Jung Young Park. Very low confidence pick. I think he should be able to take down a guy like Brad Tavares. I don't think he's going to find a submission, and I think there's going to be a very lackluster fight. And Brad Tavares gets right back up, uses the cage to get back up, grinds his way back up, and then starts to work on a guy like Jung Young Park, and it's 1-1 going into the third round, and everybody's biting their nails, and then split decision win for Jung Young Park. In my opinion, Jung Young Park should be able to win this fight. He's younger. Not only is he younger, minus 170. Come on, why are you minus 170 when you're trash? I'm just kidding. Jung Young Park should be able to win this fight, but plus 145 or the plus 3.5 for Brad Tavares is very good. Not bad at all. If you want to take that, Brad Tavares definitely wins one round out of the 3. That's fine. Plus 3.5 is perfect for Tavares. Majority Topology has that this fight goes the distance. I think it does as well. And I'm going to go Jung Young Park to win this fight by unanimous decision after a boring 15 minutes. He should be able to get a submission, though. If he's not, then Brad Tavares is better than I expected. Brandon Royval versus Tatsuro Taira. Thank you. Let's get it. I love me some Tatsuro Taira versus Brandon Royval. One of my most notable remembers of Brandon Royval was when he hurt his arm against Brandon Morono. And Brandon Morono capitalized on it and finished him. And he was like, my arm. So they rematched. And what happened in the rematch? Brandon Morono was just staring at him. Brandon Morono was just staring at him because of the relentless pressure from Brandon Royval. Brandon Morono looked like, I don't even know if that was Brandon Morono or if that was like Christian Morono or some random guy, because that did not look like Brandon Morono. You can give all the credit to Brandon Royval for making Brandon Morono look like a fish out of water in the striking department. Maybe you could say Brandon Morono had too many wars, fought too many times, but his most recent loss for Brandon Royval is to Alexander Pantoja. Tatsuro Taira had a very good win over Alex Perez. We're going to talk about that. Minus 200 for Tatsuro Taira. I already jumped on it. I know guys like Angelo from We Want Picks are on Brandon Royval. One thing I want to say is that it's not bad to be on Brandon Royval. Let's talk about my notes. Taira and Royval, a fight that matters for the division. Exciting guys that can't headline a pay-per-view yet, but are great for headlining fight nights. This is one thing that I like about fight nights, is that they're stacked, and we have more fights than usual. We have fights all the way until Thanksgiving. Excuse me. Taira is relatively untested. Brandon brings his... Brandon's grappling is aggressive, has tricky subs. He throws a bunch of crazy submissions, brings the pressure. Coming off of the Brandon Morono win, never stopped moving. His pressure was relentless versus a guy who's undefeated, 16-0. Best prospect from the flyweight division. Good thing is he's been elevated gradually. Every fight is against a guy who's a little tougher, a little bit more dangerous. Tatsuro Taira actually is fighting ranked opponents and slowly working his way up. This is the biggest test for him. Style-wise, he's a patient striker. He's got okay power in hands. Not the best takedowns, but he will stick with his takedowns and drag you to the ground. Alex was having success, but Taira jumped on his back and blew out Alex's knee. We will find out how good he is this Saturday. He's a real test. Many people consider him overrated. CJ Vergara win was good. Alex Perez, he lost the first round on all 3 judges' scorecards. He was losing that fight. Then Alex blew his knee. Royval landed more significant strikes against Pantoja, although he was taken down 8 times. Still landed more strikes than Royval. Still landed more strikes than Pantoja. Royval is at a new gym, and Royval at a plus 170 isn't bad. Royval loses, it's a very close fight if he loses. I don't know if that was able to get interpreted well, but one thing I want to say is that if you got taken down 8 times by Pantoja and still landed more significant strikes than Pantoja, you are very good. You are very, very good, especially in the flyweight division. We know Steve Uselyis had a very good performance against Pantoja. Arguably could have won that fight if he didn't get taken down halfway into the 5th round and controlled and lay and prayed by Pantoja. Pantoja is a good fight for anybody. You know, it tells you where you are in the division. I think a guy like Tatsuro Taira, it's inevitable that this guy fights a guy like Pantoja. One thing I want to mention is the overrated side. If you think a guy like Tatsuro Taira is overrated, you got to check your brain, because one thing we have to mention is Tatsuro Taira is a beast when it comes to what he does. People are saying, oh, it was a fluke injury against Alex Perez. He was winning the first round. Yes, he won the first round on all judges' scorecards. But one thing we have to mention is that he was winning that fight through landing his punches and landing his leg kicks. His leg kicks were working on Tatsuro Taira, and his uppercuts were working inside the clinch of the collar tie, and then getting an uppercut and getting an overhand right in his blitz. His blitz were working the best against Tatsuro Taira. Alex Perez had a lot of success and may have showed a blueprint for Brandon Royval. One thing I want to say was Tatsuro Taira had a great triangle lock. He had a great lock with his legs over the body of Perez, and he was moving back like this and swinging to elevate and move Alex Perez. He was moving Alex Perez with his whole torso, so he created the injury. He caused the injury on Alex Perez by having a triangle lock with his legs, going like this, wrapping his leg behind Alex Perez's leg, and then blowing out his knee, forcing it to blow out. In my opinion, that's a very dirty move, but it's very good because it's allowed in MMA. He caused it to happen, and he blew out his entire knee on Alex Perez. I like his triangle. I like his lock. I like it when he just takes your back. He could definitely take your back and just get on top of you and destroy you. We know Pantoja was able to get good takedowns on Brandon Royval. The only thing is Tatsuro Taira's entries for the takedowns aren't that good. One thing I want to mention is he's 24 years old. This guy is 24 years old and is coming for his second UFC main event. He's headlining his second UFC main event at 24 years old. So this guy is very young in the UFC division, and he's a prospect. I think maybe Asu Almabayev and Tatsuro Taira should fight eventually. In my opinion, plus 165 for Brandon Royval is perfect. But a guy like Tatsuro Taira is going to be too much for a guy like Brandon Royval. He should be able to, let's say he struggles the first round, he struggles the second round, and then he has a good triangle lock in the third round, and then shows how he's progressing. In my opinion, a guy like Royval is not going to gas. So you better not be banking on Royval gassing. If you got to beat a guy like Royval, you got to cause an injury on him. You got to create something like his shoulder popping or something. We know a guy like Brandon Royval got hurt against Brandon Morono because of his shoulder. We got to create that injury again for Tatsuro Taira. We got to try to create the same injury that we created with Alex Perez, where we get the triangle choke and we try to blow out his knee from just swinging. I think a lot of time in this fight will be controlled by Tatsuro Taira just taking the back of Brandon Royval and making the time go past. We know that your legs get gassed, though, when you're just taking the back and you're just on top of a guy like Brandon Royval. Excuse me. In my opinion, I think a guy like Tatsuro Taira should be able to win this fight. This is one of his toughest tests, and I wouldn't be surprised if it goes the distance. In my opinion, I think if I'm going Tatsuro Taira, I'm going by submission or decision. I think it's the most likely outcome. If you're going Royval, go Royval by KO or decision. The finishing upside could be on Royval, but we know a guy like Tatsuro Taira has a bunch of finishes. He beat guys like Edgar Chairez, who went to decision with Joshua Van, who we know Edgar Chairez is very good in the UFC. Also, Jesus Algular, very good submission triangle armbar, and a good submission on CJ Vergara. He's very good when it comes to this jiu-jitsu stuff, and he's a prospect from Japan. He never stops training, never stops. If you go on his Twitter, bro, you just see a bunch of him. Everything is MMA. Everything is his workhorse. A guy like Tatsuro Taira should be able to run through a guy like Brandon Royval. And I'm going to say not run through. I'm going to say it's a controversial decision. I'm going to say it's 48-47 Tatsuro Taira, split 48-47 Brandon Royval, and 48-47 Tatsuro Taira. I think Tatsuro Taira can win 3 rounds out of the 2, but I think a guy like Brandon Royval is going to get the edge if a guy like Tatsuro Taira gasses. I think the cardio upside is on Brandon Royval's side, and I think a guy like Taira needs to work on his striking. He needs to work on his striking because a guy like Brandon Royval is going to keep pressure. He's going to keep pressure, and if he finds success with a jab, that jab is going to set the tone for the whole fight. So Tatsuro Taira needs to get grappling early, and he needs to get that triangle lock on Brandon Royval early. Brandon Royval has great takedown defense, though, but as he gets tired, as he gets later in the round, sometimes he tends to look like a fish out of water and get controlled on the ground. I think Tatsuro Taira should look clean in this fight and should get a notable win. If he's able to beat a guy who's number 3 in the world, he should get a title shot, in my opinion, but maybe the UFC slowly ranking him up and he gets a number 1 contender fight. I think if he beats a guy like Brandon Royval, it's title shot time. We're coming for Pantoja. With that being said, give me Tatsuro Taira to win this fight by split decision. 48-47, Tatsuro Taira. 48-47, Brandon Royval. And 48-47, Tatsuro Taira. With all that being said, it's going to be a tough fight, one of his toughest fights. But give me Taira to win this fight by unanimous decision, if not submission in the 3rd round. With all that being said, he's a finishing guy, has great submissions. The only thing is Royval's coming off of a great win 7 months ago from Brandon Royval, considering that guy was a top 5 contender in the flyweight division. Give me Tatsuro Taira to win this fight. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let's fucking get it. UFC all the way till Thanksgiving. Let's get it. It's getting cold out there. So let's get it. Max Holloway versus Ilia Topuria. The best is blessed, baby. I'll see you guys later. Peace.